Alright, it looks like we're back now. I'm sorry, that looks like it did drop things for a second. I'm hopeful that resolved the issue. It looks, according to my control panel in OBS, that I fixed it. So sorry about that, everyone. I didn't realize that that was going to be a thing that happened. Alright, well, if someone could give me a sign of life at some point so I know that we're back, that would be helpful to Aaron. And in the meantime, I will read this tutorial, Learning Arts via Skills. Some arts can be learned from skills. Multiple skills may offer the same art, and it doesn't matter which you choose. However, if you learn the same art from more than one skill, its effects will stack, making it more powerful. You may also be able to earn new titles by using the same arts repeatedly. Alright, so we're learning a little bit more about how the skills and titles and arts are all interlinked. Well, I hope we're back. No one appears to be talking in the chat. But it appears to say that the stream is running, so I'm gonna just I'll take that as a good thing and soldier on. Oh, it says I just reconnected to chat, so it may just be that it took OBS a second to get caught up.
That was hardly worth dirtying my blade.
It hardly was, buddy. It hardly was. The Eleth gauge. During battle, the gauge on the left side of the screen shows the Eleth being produced. The blue portion is for your party and increases when you attack, are attacked, guard, or evade an attack. The red portion is for enemies and works in a similar manner. Kind of a I don't know if conservation of energy is the right way to describe it, but if we think of Eleth as this kind of base foundation of energy in the world, both the heroes and villains can vie for it in battle, which is really interesting and unusual, and I'm a big fan of it. Grail, you are under arrest. You may have been the first subscriber, but now you're going to be thrown in Twitch jail for the rest of your natural life. Yeah, so I'm not sure when I cut out or came back, but I'm 95% sure the issue was, because this makes sense to me, I was running a VPN through Switzerland and totally forgot about it, so I can understand how that might have taxed OBS more than it was useful, or more than it was used to. I looked down, and right after you were saying, oh, is it freezing or something? It went from, like, its typical 0 dropped frames to, oh, like 10% of the frames have been dropped, and it was just continuing to spike. So I'm glad we solved that early in the stream, at least. Eleth Burst. Once the blue portion of the Eleth gauge fills, Eleth is released, and the battlefield enters the Eleth Burst state, which fills your CC and keeps it there, allowing you to attack with impunity. Some skills grant additional effects during this state, so be sure to use them to gain the upper hand. I'll also apologize if it seems like Aaron can't speak this evening, which is what it seems like to me. I spent the majority of my morning and some of my afternoon kind of running around town and talking with a bunch of potential dog sitters and dog boarding facilities, because I'm trying to figure out the right care for Evie when I go with Dan to Japan for a couple weeks at the end of the year. And just especially since it's the holiday season, it's proving to be a little more challenging than it usually is. So talking with a bunch of different doggy caretakers fried my brain a little more than I was expecting it to. But there's no cure for that like Tales of Graces. Thought about it, dude, and honestly, with some of the prices that these places were talking about, it's like, I can't imagine it would be that much more expensive to take her with. But, you know, 2-week bachelor party in Japan, a little bit of a different vibe when there's a small 4-legged one in tow. Not that I don't love her, not that it wouldn't be a fun time, but it would be a different time.
It will take more than that to stand in our way.
Title effects! Every title has special effects that are active only when the title is equipped. That makes sense. If you're unsure which title is best for a certain situation, you can always just pick the one that gives you the best combat boost. Yeah, I think some of us have talked about graces as sort of the natural apex or terminus of a lot of the development philosophy of some of the earlier games, and I feel that in the titles. Like, you look at some of the earlier games and their skill and title setups and the way in which, like, titles relate to stat growth, and then skills inform, like, different character builds, in various titles that came before graces, like Symphonia or Abyss, things like that. I do really get the sense that even just with all the explanation we're getting of titles, Graces is kind of a nice realization of an intuitive and accessible system that achieves a lot of what the earlier games seemed to be gesturing at. Not that the earlier games failed, but just that this seems to tie a lot of those threads together for me. Oh, Chrissy, I don't want to tell you. I'll just say, once the VOD is up, watch the very beginning of the VOD, because I had a whole bit to go with the site's Twitch channel finally getting affiliate status on Twitch. So there is a method to the madness. Oh, nuts. Just when I decides to set up shops in the forest, the place up and gets destroyed. It seems really dangerous over there. Make sure you're prepared. Oh my god. The turtle's dialect with my dog-addled mind is not a cogent blend. Okay, yeah, I think we're happy with that. I mean, I really like the capacity core stuff in Tales of the Abyss, and I really like the weapon synthesis and the way that skills are attached to weapons in Vesperia. So those are the sorts of systems I'm alluding to, Grail, where, you know, I think many of those cool systems that were not about titles per se were in a lot of the same spirit as titles and that kind of character development. And so I feel like Tales of Graces came and just like swallowed up 3 or 4 different systems into like a single thematically satisfying one that was like surprisingly easy to understand, which is cool to see. Stamp cards! When you make a purchase at a shop, you'll sometimes get stamps on a stamp card associated with that town. For every 10 stamps you receive, the town's shops will band together and offer a special bargain item for purchase. You can also earn stamps by selling items and dualizing. Alright. So now we have incentive to buy more things in local areas to get particular items. And we have access to dualizing now. Another thing. Good looking out, Grails. The Toidles. Yeah, thank you, Chrissy. It's like I said at the beginning of the stream, it's really nice validation that like-minded gamers exist out there who enjoy having these kinds of live conversations about games, not just the sort of asynchronous commentary that's possible through articles and lectures and that kind of commentary. So nice to be able to gradually continue to expand the various modes of dialectic and conversation that are possible around video game stories. Dualizing is a way of producing a new item from 2 others in your possession. You can dualize items at any shop, and it's a good idea to do so whenever possible. Oh, I'm already forgetting the tutorials. Oh, that's right. We made a gel or something, right? That's why I don't remember, because it wasn't that interesting. Alright, well, let's play around with this a little bit. We've got leather. Combining is a form of dualizing where you combine two materials or one ingredient in a material to produce a new item. It's also a good way to crank out items that you can sell for quick cash. Alright. Alright. Grilled chicken bowl. I'm interested. Shards? No, that doesn't sound like a real thing. It'll probably never come up again. Cooking is a form of dualizing where you combine two ingredients, or one dish and one ingredient. You can make a wide range of dishes with helpful effects, including some that heal your party as you walk around. So bust out your knives and get to cooking ASAP. See, I think there's a nice kind of simplicity they get by unifying multiple systems that could be distinct and are distinct in other games, and just kind of giving them different themes. Like cooking and crafting are basically the same things, but the output are, you know, items or weapons versus food that have different effects. But if you look at the tutorials, they're explained in almost exactly the same way because the system, the dualizing, is the same for both of them. It's a nice way to help people like Aaron wrap their minds around it. A lure used for fishing. Kisara wants to know my location? A beef bowl. It's a lot of HP recovery. I like that. Get some more leather. Alright. Very good. Okay. Oh, we can even further enhance the meals that we already have. Now it's a chicken and egg bowl. Oh, man. Awesome. Thank you for the guidance, Grail. Yeah, I feel like a good place to start is just dualizing a bunch of the stuff and the materials that we don't have, because then we know that is going to exist in the collector's book for us to generate further with the mixer if we want to or need to later. Borscht! Oh, a meal that not only affects HP recovery, but also increases the experience earned. Aaron likes that. Rice porridge. Alright. Plum porridge? Oh, man. We're living the dream. Salmon pie? Oh, don't mind if I do. Alright, I feel like Aaron has messed around enough with this for the moment. And we can charge the mixer. Glad I remembered to do that. There is a lot of housekeeping that one can do at these shops, isn't there? Feel good about that. All right, onward. That's right. That's when they decided to just let the townspeople stay wherever they disappeared to, and instead to open a restaurant in the middle of this forest with the turtles. A merino flower, a flower that blooms only in the forest. It's used to make medicines. And we get a skit.
Hold on.
Yes, sir?
These are merino flowers. Combine them with water of absolution.
Ooh, remember
and you have
that?
the raw ingredients for a holy bottle. Wait here a minute.
I've studied for 7 years and I still didn't know that. Am I really ready to become a knight?
It's okay, Asbel. I didn't know that either.
Nothing, sir. It's just you're so knowledgeable about everything.
I've been playing these
And it
games
makes
for
me
like 15
jealous.
years.
Knowledge for its own sake is meaningless. But this is information that can help you to protect yourself and others when you become a knight. Remember it.
Sir,
That's not annoying. Muse is like one of the core tenets of your identity, as I understand it, Chrissy. So I'd be more worried if you didn't mention them every time it came up.
I can't lose. Strike! Gotcha! Won't live to
This is what happens when you misjudge your foe.
Yeah, a respecting person, or perhaps he sought out and fell in with people whom he felt it was easier for him to respect. Almost like he's displacing the sort of father figure that he refused to see in his own dad onto Malik, who's training him to become a knight, which is what he had always wanted. It's definitely interesting to see such a different side of him right away. Elif Gauge tips. If you want to give a boost to your portion of the Elif Gauge, try attacking enemies from behind on the field. Doing so will provide you with extra Elif when the fight begins. However, the same applies to enemies, so stay on your guard when traveling. Nice. I don't know that I know the song that you're talking about. I don't know that I want to know the song you're talking about. Oh, I love it.
Remember
Little shortcut.
I'm not done yet.
Yeah, absolutely, Chrissy. We've already gotten that in that little piece of philosophy that Malik offered, where he said knowledge on its own is meaningless. It's a matter of what you do with it. I read that to me right away as this idea that as a teacher and as a knight, he's much more interested in recognizing a student on his merits based on what it is that he's able to do rather than anything like his status or where he comes from or something like that. So it makes sense that especially after the kind of childhood that Asbel had, he would be interested in seeking out and being validated by someone who judges him on the weight of his actions rather than his heritage.
Captain Malik, it's an honor to have you here, sir.
What have you learned?
Early reports on the missing villagers appear to be true. We found no trace of them.
It looks like there was a fire.
How's the audio balance, by the way? Did I help it at all? Does it seem a little better between the game and me now?
So it does. A bad one from the state of things.
Excellent. Thank you, Grail.
Any connection between the fire and the missing villagers?
Thank you, Chrissy.
We're looking into that right now. If you could lend a hand, it would be much appreciated.
You heard them, Asbel.
Yes, sir.
Is this the cadet we've been hearing about, Captain Malik?
This is Asbel Lant. Today is his first field mission.
It's an honor to meet you.
All right, let's get started. First, we'll split up and take a look around the village. If you find anything, let me know ASAP.
Yes, sir.
I note, in light of what we were just talking about in terms of Malik and the way in which he recognizes Asbel, that he introduced him as Asbel Lant. Maybe it's just standard practice to introduce knights and cadets according to their full name, but that does strike me as a way of kind of underscoring his heritage and association with his father and the kingdom in a way that I didn't totally expect based on what we were discussing about Malik before that.
shouldn't call the captain until I know where that noise is coming from.
Oh, Asbel. Venturing off on your own so soon?
Now, where did it go?
Some things don't change. Oh, is that what this track is, Grail? It's game over music? That's very interesting.
Was that a dog? Or maybe a wolf?
Looked a wee bit like Rapide's rival. Speaking of Vesperia connections. Doggy doggy, what now?
Damn! What the hell is this? We will survive! Okay! Gotcha! Slash!
Oh, don't like that.
Why can't I hurt it?
That's what I was about to say.
I'm not about to lose here. Huh? It worked! Alright!
Lightning strike. All right. There we go. Lightning strike's Nova attribute can smash the enemy's Nova barrier. It's weak to Nova as well, so use it to attack. All right. So we have particular barriers that can only be broken in certain ways. Nope, didn't like that.
What? Strike! Okay, fall! Fall! What? Strike! There! Draw! Die! Pulled it off, somehow.
And we got an herb. Oh man, I'm in. All about attributes. Attributes are the attack characteristics associated with particular arts. The beast attribute, for example, increases damage to beast-type monsters, while the slash attribute is effective against enemies weak to slash attacks. So this is the system which we found ourselves comparing to Vesperia back when we were working through that post-game content, and which was promised to be more intuitive, and that's my recollection of it as well, so hopefully that's borne out in our playthrough. I know, I kept waiting for it to put it back up. I felt like that was the whole point of the fight, but it was too scared. We intimidated it the first time. That's what happened.
I finally beat him. But what was that light from my hand? What is this thing?
Did you slay this beast?
Yes, sir. It attacked without warning, so I defended myself.
I'm doing my best, dude. If it becomes too easy, we'll crank up the difficulty. It's a place to start.
Captain, do you think this creature is responsible for the missing villagers?
It's certainly possible. I found evidence of wild animal attacks while I was exploring the village. This thing could have been part of a larger group. but we'll need more info to be sure.
You have our gratitude, Captain. I think we can take it the rest of the way.
Understood. Asbel, we're done here.
Thank you for your assistance, Asbel.
Of course, sir. I'm glad I was able to help.
Indeed. Your efforts may have unlocked the core of this little mystery. Captain Malik has chosen well. I look forward to having you in our ranks.
Now, this boy is no knight. Not yet, anyway.
He's a pre-knight. A petite knight. A knightlet, if you will.
Forgive me, sir. You're a lucky man to be trained by the captain himself. Do not waste the opportunity.
Thank you, sir. I appreciate the advice.
This ends your first field mission. Let's be on our way back to the capital.
Thanks, Dad. I mean, Captain Dad. Don't worry about the follow-up. We'll handle the inquiry and paperwork. Ha, music to my ears. We don't have to deal with the paperwork in this JRPG. Let's hope the monster you slew was responsible for attacking this town. Such a fell creature. I've never seen its like. Yeah, speaking of the game over music as you were, Grail, I love everything about the musical storytelling in the Tales games, and I love especially the different senses of unease and melancholy that they can fill you with when they put those sad or foreboding tracks in kind of unsuspecting situations. Like, I had completely forgotten. I forgot so much about the conclusion of Fantasia, and I really just think I didn't have the right context or approach to the game as a kid to even really understand what it was about or to fully appreciate it. So it was really just one of my first JRPGs, and I don't think I understood its place in the series, and I think it was maybe even the second one I played after Tales of Symphonia without even really thinking about it or processing that they were in the same world. But long-winded way of saying, I forgot how melancholic and pensive the final track that they play, without spoilers, for the final boss is, and it's one of those things that has me still thinking about the fight and kind of trying to work my way through it.
All right, we'll head back the way we came. You take the lead.
Yes, sir.
Asbel, I was glad for an opportunity to see your true prowess. But I must admit, I was surprised at what I witnessed.
Oh, that's interesting, Grail. That makes a lot of sense. But within the context of the game, right? A stands for assault and B stands for burst. Like that's the explanation within the system, right? Just so we're on the same page about that as we go forward.
Surprise, sir?
Which also makes sense to me as far as naming goes.
You. But then you suddenly... Well, I'm not sure what you did. Why have you kept this ability hidden?
It's nothing I've tried to hide, Captain. In truth, I'm not sure how I beat the thing.
You could be ready for real action now. I might even have to challenge you to spar one of these days.
Did the Captain just praise me?
I almost feel like that had a bit of Carol and the Dawn energy to it. Acknowledge me, role model. Please. Let me learn from you. Can we play as Malik right now? I definitely want to try playing as Malik. Not just because he's voiced by Jameson Price, but that doesn't hurt. Oh my god, how many times will Aaron open the same chest and not be able to actually avail himself of its contents? There we go. Oh, thank you, Grail. I knew I was recognizing his voice from somewhere. That's interesting, though. I probably would have made Kirito, but he does not sound like the same VA as Law to me at all. Boy's got some range. What's his name? Shout out his name so we can give him credit where credit is due.
Let's get this underway.
Oh no. Alec, I failed you. I'm sorry. Oh, he's so much slower yet so powerful. It's like he's methodically carving his way through butter. Bryce Pappenbrook, thank you for your amazing contributions to gaming and anime storytelling, Bryce. Maintaining balance. If you spend too much time guarding and not enough time attacking, the enemy will eventually break your guard. Once you achieve Red Aura, go on the offensive. That is the kind of advice I could use to encourage me to push the attack. So often I don't. I know, you ever have moments like that where you just sort of, you see your own gaming tendencies, or I guess tendencies in the real world, in a different light? Like, I find almost always when I force myself to be more aggressive than I'm comfortable with in gaming systems, there end up being better outcomes, which makes me think I'm more defensive as a player than game systems oftentimes want me to be. Like, I see this especially in Dark Souls and other games of Miyazaki's, but probably in the Tales games too. But for all that, it's really hard for me to get outside my sort of, like, the comfortable dimensions of my agency and try something different. But that's why it's nice to have little tutorials like that, pushing the issue. Because of the spellcasting, Grail, or just the distance management in general?
I think the mission went well, but how are you feeling?
I feel great, sir. In fact, I'd like to take the lead until we return to the academy.
I call that brash and bold.
It's good to see such motivation, but before you can lead, you'll need this map.
Thank you, Captain Malik.
The road leads straight there, so I doubt you'll get lost, but it's good to have just in case. Now be aware of yourself, and don't let your guard down until we reach Verona. The monsters on this road have been fierce lately.
Yes, sir.
My Verona. Can't believe I didn't make that joke last time.
Stand guard!
It'll be interesting to see whether, if at all, Verona has changed in the last 7 years.
Rolling flare! Weapon up! Stone spear! It will take more than that to stand
Nice.
in our way.
The way the spell changed to the physical attacks was much more satisfying in a nice flow than I had expected. That does make sense, Grail. Alright, well maybe we'll try him out on manual mode for the next fight. Some B-arts require time to charge. If you hold circle and use the left stick while casting, you can change the art's target. If you continue to hold circle after casting is complete, you'll activate a blue charge, which lets you choose when the art is unleashed. And with a certain skill, you can activate a red charge, which adds additional attributes to the art. Now you're speaking my language. Calls to mind all of the alternative elemental arts in Tales of Vesperia again. Definitely feel like it's synthesizing a lot of the customization systems of Vesperia, some of the more generic design elements of the previous games. Well met, Asbel. You finished your mission in the Orland Woods, then? Yes. My transport's tortoise got all irritated and ran back to Verona on its own. Always charge the mixer. Always. We have no money. Is there new stuff? A pork cutlet bowl? Alright. Give it to me. That's not new. It's not new. I think we've synthesized, or excuse me, dualized all the stuff that we can dualize from now. Come agains.
Remember your training. Weapons of
Gotcha!
Strike! Rest of flame! Photon burst! It will take more than that to stand in our way.
I just had a moment. I don't know if it was obvious from the playback, but I was casting with Malik when I meant to be attacking with him, and I realized why it is. It's because the the base attack button versus the technical art button in Graces is mapped in the exact opposite layout as it is in Tales of Eternia. So now it's like Aaron has to completely relearn the proper inputs for Graces after a weekend of binging way too much Eternia. Which is good. I think it's good to have that sort of flexibility of going back and forth between differently mapped systems. It keeps you dexterous and on your toes as a gamer and a thinker.
This area hasn't changed much either.
If you don't mind me asking, Captain, who were those knights back in Orlin?
Former students.
I can tell they really trust and admire you.
Well, Asbel, that's because I'm very trustworthy and admirable.
Sir, but why did you become an instructor? Surely you'd see more action if you served in the field.
The other knights were more capable.
But Captain, you're an exceptional knight. I can't imagine anyone being better than you.
Flattery will get you everywhere, Asbel. But let's just say the others have a certain something I don't.
I wonder if I have that certain something to become a knight.
I do really like the way that the Tales series represents instructor or teacher characters. Like that little reflection on Malik and, oh, why did you decide to be a teacher rather than a knight in the field? Calls to mind for me right away to examples like Rain Sage and Jade Curtis. Neither of whom are directly teachers in the same way as Malik is, I would say. Like Rain, opens the game as a teacher, but pretty quickly becomes something a little different when she's, traveling as part of Colette's pilgrimage. So it's interesting to have this portion of the game after the time skip start out in a more directly educational and didactic format with one of the characters explicitly acting as the teacher. And cool too, in light of that, to have a game where Asbel is in this instructional context, and yet we have the agency to play as the teacher if we so choose. I feel as though in many other games, if we had a teacher who was guiding the character across a portion of the gameplay, the teacher would not be a playable character. So to have that right off the bat, that's why I said, oh, maybe we should check if Malik is playable. I really didn't imagine he would be. It's pretty cool that he is. Oh, interesting, Grail. What's scanning as depression in Asbel for you right now? Just his doubt in his capacity to become a knight?
Let's rest here for a bit.
Yes, sir.
Yeah, especially interesting too, given how overflowing with resolve he was at the end of the childhood arc when we saw him show up at the Knights Academy for the first time. I imagine some of that might have to do with what has happened in the intervening 7 years. Be interesting to get more context on that.
Seeing country like this makes you realize just how blessed Windor truly is.
Deja vu.
Remind me, Asbel, when did you enter the Knight Academy?
It's been almost 7 years now, sir.
It all passes so quickly.
It's been my honor to learn from you during this time, Captain.
You're the son of a lord, yes? Will you ever return home and reclaim the family name?
Well,
I ask because I'm ready to recommend you as a full-fledged knight.
Oh,
really?
my man.
In truth, my word is a mere formality. If the life of a knight is your wish, your acceptance is almost certain. You're young yet and still lack experience, but this mission has convinced me that you're ready enough to take the next step.
Thank you, sir.
But this is not a decision to be made in haste, Asbel. Perhaps you should consult with your parents first.
But Captain, sir, I hate my dad.
That won't be necessary, Captain. I am prepared to devote my life to the Knights.
Very well, if that is your wish.
It is, sir. Finally, my lifelong dream is about to come true.
When we get back, we'll make a little detour to mark the occasion. I assume you're familiar with tactics, right?
It's your favorite pub, sir.
Even a knight needs to unwind now and again. Wouldn't you agree?
Cool name for a pub in a Tales game. Tactics.
Thank you, Captain.
I must say, Windor is such a beautiful country.
But unfortunately, the wars never end.
Where did that come from?
When I was young and naive, I came here with a group of very close friends. One of them stood right here and told me all about how he wanted to create a world without conflict.
That would have been the power move, Chrissy. Call it the Final Fantasy. with the word "the" in all italics.
Back then, I was just a kid with my head in the clouds. At that moment, I believed I actually had the power to make his dream come true.
That's what everyone thinks when they're young.
But something happened soon afterward. Something that made me realize what a pathetic child I actually was.
I see. And I assume that's when you decided to enlist in the...
Yeah, this scans to me as depressed
Yes, sir.
too, Grail. Depressed and kind of resigned. Like, especially in that conversation with Malik, it sounds almost as if the way in which Asbel has decided to cope with what happened in the catacombs is by kind of not just suppressing it, but kind of like artificially constraining his worldview. Or like he said before, as a kid, you know, he thought he could take on the world and change everything and save everyone. And now it's like he's trying to force himself to grow into an adult by restricting his perspective on what's possible. Kind of like resigning himself to a smaller sphere of influence so that he doesn't bite off more than he can chew again and hurt other people. As he did in the catacombs, and for which his father so harshly chastised him at the end of that arc. Yeah, it definitely felt like that kind of conversation, Chrissy. Although I think important for Asbel to have it called to mind and as a point of reflection for him over that same vista where Richard was aspiring to put an end to all international conflict in that overlooking the Sea of Fog scene that we talked about in the childhood arc. No one has ever filed a complete collection of all the world's discoveries. You've been here saying that same thing for 7 years. I remember you.
Let's get this underway.
There! Slow him down!
Flex! Farewell! Photon burst! Not bad, don't you think?
Let's do this!
Rolling flash! Weapons of fury!
Fall!
It will take more than that to stand in our way.
Cold front. All right. Yeah, for sure, Grail. How do we open the world map? Oh, there we go. The world map. Of course, it's the very last thing on the controller that I tried. The world map shows all kinds of info, including shops, discoveries, and requests in various towns. Make sure to look into the requests, as many of them offer valuable rewards. Press R3 to bring up the world map at any time. Oh, okay, so it helps you to actually track requests. Interesting. Do you have a sense of why it pisses you off? I know you said for some primal reason, so maybe it's hard to put words to. I mean, for me, especially knowing as little as we do right now about the world, it strikes me as looking very similar to a lot of the Tales worlds. Especially Terca Lumere. Like, you have the icy region on top, the desert region and kind of the bottom left, and then the green region on the right side, kind of edging its way out towards the top. Not exactly the same, but it strikes me as familiar enough. But yeah, I'm interested in what irks you so much about it. Yeah, well, it'll be interesting, Chrissy, to see kind of how the pub conversation is used, because I'm sure they'll talk about something there, and then we can kind of compare and contrast it with the sort of conversation that they had on the Overlook. Maybe that'll even shed some different perspective on what it is that Asbel is working through. Or his relationship with Malik, which we're still trying to find our footing with.
Let's get this underway.
Oh, we got the Elith Burst! We're unstoppable!
Did we get carried away?
I think we might have. Man. Reduces casting time to nothing. Oh, I think we need to map Malik's new spell. Gold front. Love it.
Stand guard! Oh, I see a surprise! Farewell! Please, die!
Not yet!
It will take more than that to stand in our way.
Dualizing shards! Ha! Thanks to the foreshadowing from Grail, I had a feeling this might be coming up. Sometimes enemies will drop items known as shards. If you dualize these shards with weapons or armor, you can add effects, such as added defense or HP restoration to your gear. If you come into possession of such a shard, make for the nearest shop post-haste. I love it. It's very exciting to me. Reminds me of... Actually, I think they're also called shards verbatim in Tales of Eternia, but you can use them to enhance what are basically summon spirits in a very cool way. Yeah, let's look at it again. So it feels kind of juvenile, or a little fake, to use your word. Here's one thing to keep in mind. And again, I know you've played through this much more recently than I have, Grail, and you know we're working through it as a stream, and we're only at this point, so maybe we'll uncover more that will push us in one direction or the other here. But we already know at this point that there are 3 distinct kingdoms in the world, right? And remember, it was Malik, the captain of the knights in this one kingdom, presumably 1/3 of the world, that gave Asbel this map. And so it might be interesting to wonder, well, maybe it's just that no single one of these kingdoms has a good or especially precise perspective on the overall topology of the world because they're just in their own little corner and context of it. That's something that feels like a very Tales theme to me, and something that could also be borne out in the representation of the map. One would also expect in that case, though, that if that were the MO, then the part of the map that represents the Kingdom of Windor would be more detailed than the others. I can't really tell from this perspective whether that's the case, but it looks probably not to be the case. So that's my best apology for it, but it's an apology that doesn't seem to be borne out especially well in terms of what we're actually seeing graphics-wise here. Some of it may just be as simple as the art style, too. Like, it looks almost sort of like it was sort of two-dimensionally filled in with crayons or something, so maybe that's part of what makes it feel kind of like almost childish in the way that you said it feels like something you would have drawn like 8 years ago in your own childhood. I'm thinking about it a little more. One idea, too, that might reinforce the idea of the 3 kingdoms as relatively insular is maybe, even though Malik felt like it would be valuable to give Asbel a world map, maybe part of the idea is that they're so concerned with what's happening in their own polity, in their own little corner of the world, that they don't really think about their lives or operations on an international or global scale, except when it comes to, like, conflict with other places. So maybe it's almost like it doesn't feel like a real world map because no one really cares about using it for actual navigation. It's more of just a gesture than an actual tool for navigating. Which could also be borne out in the game mechanics, right? Like, I don't think I would have even thought to go to the world map, and I had to make such an effort to even find the right button to call it up if you hadn't explicitly asked me about it. So maybe that could be part of it. Pottery, I know I don't even have to tell you to watch the VOD because you will, but welcome, and you'll understand when you watch the VOD. It was for a bit. I did it as a joke! There's too much fucking stuff on me! I can't breathe in this thing. What does this stream do for the greater good? Ice Pops! Oh man. I feel like I'm back in Tales of Destiny. Oh, I feel that way because it's an actual direct Tales of Destiny illusion with the wind stick. The wind stick, excuse me. Excited about this.
I have to admit, they sell the best ice pops at this place. I can't stop thinking about the way my hand shimmered back in the Orland Woods. What happened there? I should have asked the captain when I had the chance.
Hey, your ice pop's melting.
What? Crap, what a waste.
That's a tough break. Oh, look, I got a wind stick. Hey, shopkeeper, I'll take another. Stand down, Asbel. I'm not giving it to you.
Understood.
Aww. I love that. So, for those who have not played or written a giant tome about Tales of Destiny recently, in one of the cities you go to, Neustadt, the regional manager of the kind of international corporation that runs a lot of things in the world, after you kind of help things out in that region, she takes the hero Stan out on a date around the city, and one of the things that she introduces him to is an ice pop stand, exactly like this one, where there are wind sticks, and if your stick is a winner, you get an additional free one, like just happened. So a quiet little cameo that you would never need to know about to appreciate it, but Sometimes they weave more into the fabric of these stories than is even obvious right away. Oh my goodness, pottery! Wow! Bizarre sounds like the right word for that. Well, all's well that ends well, I suppose. I don't know if you watch Only Murders in the Building, but elevator shaft shenanigans feature centrally in the new season of that too, so that's the only point of reference I have. I'm glad you have keys again now. What a foot on which to set things off. The Royal Sanctuary is this way. Yeah, I'm with you, Grail, and to be clear, as I was thinking about, I think it's definitely one of those aspects of the game, like any aspect of the game really, where you can get a lot of mileage out of asking, like, all right, look beyond the function of this. Let's actually look at how it's presented and the context in which it's situated and ask, how do we feel about this and why is it the case? And how does it inform our understanding of the world more broadly? And, whether or not you buy my particular top of mind thoughts about that, I think, however you end up feeling about it can definitely give you traction on a lot of other tangential issues in the story and world, like the way the kingdoms think about each other and navigation and how the knights orient themselves on missions and expeditions of the kind we just went on, things like that. Only the most high level of knights are allowed into Barona Castle. Prince Richard is a kind young man. He's always ready to strike up a conversation, even with common people like us. It's a very different vibe from the first major kingdom and capital you encounter in Tales of Eternia, where it's basically classism to the nth degree. And commoners are all untouchables. Which was a really interesting vibe to contrast with Grace's this weekend. 2 skits in the inn by the save point. All right. Thank you, Grau. Oh yeah, I can imagine pottery. It definitely seems like a divergence in approach to cartography after those two. Yes, yeah, lots of updates at the top of the stream, so be sure to catch up on the VOD. Like I said, I know you will. Yeah, I started this weekend. I'm loving it so far. It's such an uncanny and interesting experience that what I said at the start was I really feel like I can't look away and I can't put it down in the best of ways. So I imagine it won't take too long for me to get all the way through it. Really enjoying it. What I said, pottery, and I'll try to share little spoiler-free tidbits about this if it's interesting to people, but it has struck me in my first probably 10 or so hours with it that it's similar to those sorts of fossils archaeologists excavate of sort of intermediate evolutionary stages between 2 more recognizable species, which is to say, if you think about a number of different world mechanics or character arcs or just key, very Tales-feeling ideas in later games, like Tales of Symphonia, like Tales of the Abyss, you can see the team on Tales of Eternia working through a lot of those ideas for the first time in really fun and unusual ways that are very different than how they're realized in later games. So, especially in the kind of Tales of Praxis context that I'm working through, it's been really, really fun to see that kind of intermediate development. Yeah, that does seem like an ideal quality for a king, doesn't it, Duke? Well, we'll have to talk about that as I continue to work through it, Grail. I feel a lot of the Symphonia, but I feel a lot of the other stuff too. Again, without any spoilers, I was really grateful to start off with it at almost the exact same time I was starting off with Tales of Graces F, because its whole setup at the beginning, pretty similar and like a spiritual cousin of the beginning of Tales of Graces that we just worked through together. So very fun to see all of that. We have a Mind Shard, which adds Suave as a quality and an attack boosting effect. All right, I'm in. Let's do it. Longsword +1. All right, Enhancing. Enhancing is a form of dualizing where you combine a shard with a piece of equipment that doesn't yet contain a shard. Once you do, any effects the shard has will be transferred to the equipment. If you use that gear enough in battle, it will become tempered, which raises its effectiveness. I love that. Again, feels very intuitive so far. Enjoying this. Yeah, there's been a lot of system discovery and appreciation for the intuitive nature of systems, and even just the way in which the tutorials walk you through them in Graces so far, Pottery. The stream was big for that. Has me optimistic about the arc of this playthrough in terms of systems analysis and Aaron's capacity to wrap his mind and hands around mechanics.
You know, Asbel, I've been putting a lot of thought into this lately, but what is it that I can really teach you?
What's that, sir?
Some time ago, Victoria told me that you and I were different. She called us complete opposites.
There's Victoria coming back,
Never felt that
as you
way,
foretold,
sir.
Grail.
Nor did I, but that didn't mean it couldn't be true. In fact, I even thought about withdrawing as your instructor.
Please know that I am deeply grateful for all that you have taught me, Captain.
Oh, so my guidance is no longer necessary, is it?
I didn't mean it like that.
Then before you cast me aside, let me ask you a question. Who will you fight for once you're a knight? Or rather, is there anyone you could fight for? Does that question make sense?
Yes, of course. I chose my answer to that question 7 years ago, and it remains the same. I would gladly give my life to protect the people dear to me.
Well said, Asbel. I see you are indeed my student.
You see, there was this tree, and we wrote our names in it. Never mind. It won't come up again. That was the child arc.
I guess it's been a while since I've been shopping, because I didn't know about these stamp cards. Let's have a look here. Each city throughout the world uses its own stamp cards. You can collect stamps only in the city where a card was issued. When you buy or sell items at a shop, you earn stamps. When you collect enough stamps, you get... What? What do you get? These instructions really get you riled up. Oh, you get VIP privileges.
Oh,
Oh, come on. That could be anything.
very important privileges.
To collect stamps. But I am intrigued by these VIP privileges.
Yeah, but without the fun banter of Lila and Edna to ground it. I thought about that too, Pottery. To me, it reads almost like a koan, and the instructional approach of Malik seems like it could easily gel with that for me. I feel like to me, I hear that question of, is there anyone you could fight for, as basically saying, you have to stand in a certain kind of relationship to someone to sort of have the right standing to be able to fight for them. Like, you can't just go out and fight for any old stranger. There has to be enough of a reason and a shared context in order for your defense of them to be sound. And honestly, as I'm talking through it, this hadn't occurred to me, but it almost feels thematically consonant with that whole debate that Asbel and Sophie had in their childhood about who would protect whom, right? Like, it's not as if just anyone can protect anyone else, and it's not as if you have the right to protect the girl just because you're the boy, right? Like, there's more nuance to the relationship of the protector and the protected than that. And just so with the one who fights as a knight and whom it is they fight for, right? So I think that's the sense that I would make of it, at least, but it's definitely not a normally phrased question, to be sure. Yeah, and I think just to close the loop, Pottery. So my explanation of the the difference between those questions would be like, maybe there are people you would want to fight for, whom you couldn't actually fight for based on not being in the right relationship or standing to them. Maybe even, there might be a part of Asbel who wants to fight for his family, but he feels as though he's disowned them, as a toy example, right? In requests, okay. I'll check that out. Oh, geez. I know. Sophie. I hope you're okay, Sophie. That's true. Let us not forget that the last thing we heard of Sophie after that epic encounter in her battle with that monster was Aston saying flatly, "She's dead." Sophie, I hope you're okay. View requests. Okay, there we go. Yeah, there you go. Another good example, right? Yeah, so maybe he would want to fight in defense of the friendship pact on that tree, but they're not people for whom he could fight right now, Which even maybe, I'm thinking about this more, like, that could almost be implicit in Asbel's response to Malik, right? Because he says something very generic, like, I want to fight for the people who are important to me. We're like, yeah, no shit, Asbel. That says basically nothing, except that you don't want to fight for strangers, right? But maybe part of that is sort of the tacit or subconscious acknowledgement that the specific people for whom he would want to fight are in the wind for him right now, and he has no way of actually standing up for them or even accessing them. Most inns contain requests for help from various townspeople. Once you have the desired item or items, hand them over to receive your reward. You'll also earn SP from requests, making them a great way to develop titles. I like that. Note that there is no time limit for completing requests. I like that too. All right. Little side requests. Xenoblade Chronicles wants to know my location. A boy needs cool items to show his friends so they know how awesome he is. But they can't be something you can just buy in a store. All right, kid. We don't have any of those. God damn it. Night. I work the night shift tonight, so I could use some grub to lift my spirits. I'm pretty hungry, so if it fills me up, that would be great. I had a grilled chicken bowl, and then I upgraded it with an egg, ruining my own life in the process. These are dangerous times, so I started taking sheathed sword lessons. However, they say I need to procure my own equipment, the bastards. Don't have that. We have none of these things. Alright, but at least now we have access to them. Victoria was looking for important documents while in Verona. They may have been dropped or misplaced. So if we find them, return them to her. And maybe that's something we can find in town here, and that seems a little more specific and perhaps story-centric than the others. Alright, can keep an eye out for those. I weep too, Padre. Man. Every time I go to a great ramen place and just, like, have a quiet moment of savoring and being thankful for the seasoned egg in the ramen, it's, like, really thoughtfully done and pairs with everything. I get that exact same feeling, my friend. Alright, so there you go. Already we have one with a cool reward other than items. It felt like that kind of request, so hopefully if we wander around a little bit, we can find those documents. It's an extension of the joke that Aaron was making at the start of this stream. We're simply too fancy now for our own good. We're too evolved to help ourselves actually evolve. Yeah, I'm okay with that kind of guidance, Grail. I feel right now as if the stream will probably not get that much more value out of Aaron wandering around town looking for something right now if we know where an item like that is. Best princess stories? I'm in! Tell me the one about Lady Esteliz. A series of 5 books that collect stories about princesses from various worlds. That would have been a really easy call out to Vesperia too, as another little mini cameo that you didn't need to know about but could appreciate. Although I guess you could read it that way if you wanted to, no pun intended, because we know from Tales of Vesperia that Asbel ends up wanting to be a writer anyway, so you could think of it as a nice little Easter egg for her story if you wanted to. I'm talking to all these NPCs and forgetting to read the dialogue out loud. I apologize. I will get back to that. Dried seaweed. Excellent. I'm what you might call a gabber. What can I say? I love to chat. Here, let me tell you a story. Oh no, we're trapped. I started my journey in Strata. You know Strata, right? Big country, lots of sand? Sure you do. Well, the story begins there. I keep a travel diary everywhere I go, so the details are all still fresh. Day 1, the morning of my 20th birthday. A fine morning. The sun is up. The sky is still there. There's, wind. So I suddenly realize I've been wasting my life. Oh no. I don't know if I was ready for this NPC. Here I am, 20 years old, and I don't even have a husband. Heck, I just dumped my boyfriend, so I didn't have a man, period. But that meant I was free to travel the world. Oh, but don't get the wrong idea. It's not like I was doing this out of desperation. I have standards. Press and hold circle to speed up conversations. Oh my god. Being a traveler had always been my dream, ever since I was a little kid, which I was once. So I decided to start buying oh my god. It's an NPC who's designed to teach you how to speed up conversations. That's hilarious. Part of me almost wants to have slogged through that all, but understanding what it was there for and looking at the pieces of dialogue, we probably would have been there for a good 10, 15 minutes. But it was lore that was designed to teach you how to skip the deep lore. Oh, it trapped me in its paradox. I'm sorry. There aren't any other Victorias in town besides the one in the Knights, right? Okay, we'll do the scene in the bar first. Can we have the whole conversation again? No, we missed it. I'm sorry. I'm sorry for doing exactly what the game told me to do. I should have. This is the deep lore of Tales of Praxis and the With the Terrible Fate stream. See, now that we are moving on to the next level of affiliate and everything that goes with it, we can start getting to know really what our community wants. And clearly what they want is not advancement of the plot, but deep lore of dialogue that is meant to be skipped. I'm willing to accept that I'm probably responsible for that culture. I will own it and be proud of it, as should we all. This is not where the bar is. It's a learning process like anything else. Where's the fucking bar? Am I stupid? The bar is up above across the overpass. All right. The last place I checked. Well, I mean, clearly I haven't been doing this with every NPC, but I've spent plenty of time on the Graces stream already extolling the importance of taking the time to actually talk to the NPCs and look at the supporting text and all the documents and everything like that. It really does add so much to the game. I'll tell you, it was like a breath of fresh air going back in time to Tales of Eternia, because I know we've discussed on the stream previously how over the years with the Tales games, while they're all fantastic in their own ways, they have steered away from like supplementary discoverable texts like books in libraries and on bookshelves and stuff. And one of the first places you go in Tales of Eternia Town's got a motherfucking library, and you can read all sorts of academic texts discussing details of how the world works and how people in the various cultures are speculating about the nature of the world when they don't really understand it. And, catnip. I must have spent at least like 20 or 30 minutes just there in those documents, and I loved it. Try entering treasure. What is that note about? That is definitely a certain kind of NPC philosophy. And one which I favor, by the way. It can be a lot of work, but if it really fleshes out the world and the story in compelling ways, I mean, I think a lot of that ethos is what makes games like Xenoblade Chronicles and indeed the Tales games so impactful and robust.
A long and glorious career. May the wind guide our blades.
May the wind guide our
You are the
blades.
wind beneath my wings. I mean, may the wind guide our blades.
Thank you, Captain. I hope to continue training under you even after I become a knight.
No, grown-up Asbel is very serious. He doesn't allow himself to smile. Smiling just reminds him of the event.
Relax, Asbel. This is a celebration. Let tomorrow take care of itself.
Being a knight is all I ever wanted. I need it, Captain. I need to be strong.
Nothing good can come from haste, Asbel.
When I left home, I swore to become strong. I swore I would never again fail to protect someone. So when I'm not training or fighting, I feel like I'm wasting time.
Seeking the strength to help others, eh? It's a noble goal. And if becoming a knight helps you achieve it, then so much the better.
Oh, you knew there was going to be a conversation like this. Come on.
But there are some things even a knight cannot protect. You would do well to remember that.
Understood, sir.
All right, enough wool gathering. This is your celebration, so eat up.
Yes, sir. Whew. Thanks for the meal, Captain, but I can't eat another bite.
It's interesting. I wasn't expecting to see this overlap, but a lot of the theming of Asbel thinking about what it means to protect someone and trying to grow strong enough to do the proper service as a knight, striking a lot of notes of similarity with Kisara from Tales of Arise and the literal and figurative shield of the realm and everything that she works through as she becomes her own person over the course of the game.
Good. Now maybe next time we'll celebrate your entry into adulthood with my favorite cocktail.
I clocked that too, Pottery. That is an unusual one, isn't it? Like, I can get it from context, but since you also called it out, I feel like I have to look up, like, the etymology. Like, let's say where it came from? Yeah, it's idiomatic for indulgence and idle daydreaming, but... And it was first used in 1553. But what's its origin? The last piece of wool. Well, there's a whole article about an Oxford etymologist trying to figure this out. So at least it's not just us. It starts out, this is by Anatoly Lieberman. I have never heard anyone use the idiom to go wool gathering, but it occurs in older books with some regularity, and that's why I know it. So, if anyone wants to look further into this, which I know I do, I'll probably read this article afterwards on the OUP's blog, but there you go, check that out. Yeah, I love watching people eat in games and anime too. Yeah, it sounds a bit like that.
Come. We should return to the Knight Academy.
Apple gel juice? It's an official Barona business permit. Hey, don't stare at me like that. You're making me nervous. There you go. The intuition is borne out. I would have also put money on very British. It's not my fault people call me by my title. So what if I spend a lot of gold in the shops? Cedric's been acting strange lately. I should probably inform Duke Dalen. VIPs only, huh? Ah, the documents! Documents found at a bar in Barona. They bear the seal of the Royal Knights. Alright, back to the inn. A Moji-kun plushie! A stuffed toy of Moji. It's nice to have around when you're feeling lonely. Oh. Now there's someone who knows how to smile. What a get. Well, apparently it's one of those phrases that sits at the intersection of very British and very old, which is its own special quirk of language in and of itself, I think. It's ready! Here you go! You received an iron sword and a whole lot of skill points. And Asbel mastered his Pact Maker title. Fantastic. Oh, and a scene? Little scene? Yeah, right. Like the kind of thing that is British, but not in current circulation British. So, you're the one who fulfilled my request. I appreciate it. Not at all, ma'am. If you don't mind my asking. Go on. Out with it. Well, how could you lose such important papers? I'm sorry to be blunt. It just seems so unlike you. Well, someone's feeling cocky today. Is this because Malik is telling everyone you're a shoo-in for knighthood? No, ma'am, I would never. It's just, I noticed it was a letter of reassignment. Yeah, hell, there you go. Got it in one. It was at the bar. What do you want? You should really stop obsessing about yourself for a change and pay attention to the world around you. The current Royal Guard is an utter disaster, and this document is proof. Boy, we're learning a lot more about the state of the nation. Wait, are you going to be part of the Royal Guard? That's great. A reassignment at a time like this just means they need warm bodies to fill positions, nothing more. Now get out of here. I think you've meddled in the affairs of others enough for one day. Boy, the tenor switched from thank you to no thanks pretty quickly here. Although Asbel was pretty blunt, and probably not in a way befitting of a cadet. Wait, one last thing. Was Captain Malik selected for the Royal Guard as well? Why would you mention his name? Oh, I forgot. Major Victoria was always butting heads with Captain Malik, wasn't she? Ah, I'm sorry, ma'am. I didn't mean to bring up any unpleasant memories. No, that's not the point. Ma'am? Wait, are you upset because the two of you might be separated if you move on and he doesn't? Wait, what am I saying? That'd be the day. Will you please just sip it already? Remember this, Asbel Lant. You are my pupil. As your instructor, I forbid you to speak of anything we just discussed. Yes, ma'am. My reassignment has yet to be publicly announced, so you mustn't speak a word of this to anyone. Understood? Don't you disappoint me. Understood, ma'am. Interesting. More to her relationship with Malik than meets the eye. Teacher's pet title, love it. Yeah, granted, we're obviously still just starting out in this adulthood arc, but I am getting this impression, which reminds me of my first playthrough with the game, so I'll be interested to see how long this sticks with us. But I did have a memory where, they talk about the game being this intersection of conflicts between three kingdoms, but I really don't remember much, if at all, about that aspect of it, like the political intrigue, if you want to call it that. And so far, it very much feels like, we're focused on Asbel's interiority and how it is that he's processing relationships. And yeah, we have the sense that there are wars going on around and there are strains upon the kingdom, but they're kind of outside the focus and hard for us to wrap our heads around. And even that, like, we got a little more detail into how the kingdom is organizing itself, but we had to go out of our way in a side quest to get it. So I wonder how long that focalization method will stick with the story, if it'll be a through line or if at some point it'll become more clearly politically interested. Got it. Excellent. Looking forward to that, Grail. And I will definitely find some kind of guide to help us find our way through those side pieces as well. Oh! Recognize her?
Oh my goodness. Could it be that it's really you, Asbel?
No, wait. Then, Cheria. Cheria, it's you.
Yes.
I can't believe it. This is crazy. I haven't seen you in 7 years. What are you doing here? When did you arrive?
A little while ago.
You should have told me. I could have picked you up.
Didn't you get the letter?
Letter?
Your mother sent you a letter begging you to come home.
Oh. Well, I was on a mission. I haven't been here for a while. Wait a minute. Did something happen?
Lord Aston passed away.
What?
Wow.
You mean to tell me that my father is gone? What are you talking about? What happened?
Calm down, Asbel.
And
You're
I assume
Cheria,
they
right?
never reconciled with each
Let's
other.
talk about this inside. Please, both of you follow me. Asbel, pull yourself together, all right?
My father... dead?
There are a lot of really moving and simple piano lines that orchestrate the soundtrack in this game. I'm noticing that.
The border dispute between Lant and Fendel has turned desperate. Your father is having difficulty coping with the situation.
Yeah, I feel you, Grail. I think that's a persistently interesting question, how these games navigate the interpersonal versus the international. Because I think probably every game, or at least most of them, has an interesting answer to that, and probably not the same across all the games. Yeah, I know what you mean, Doug, but also, like, on the one hand, the two probably needed time apart. On the other hand, to be robbed of the opportunity to ever make things right or further evolve the relationship. Like, talk about heaping onto the trauma that this poor kid already has had to deal with and figure out how to process.
Please come home before the fighting takes an even more serious turn.
And to have completely missed the request and just not be able to act on it now. Like, that's such an undercutting of his agency and ability to even, like, make his own decisions about the relationship.
I had no idea things were so bad.
We waited to hear from you, but then Lord Aston perished in battle. With Lady Carrie bedridden from exhaustion and grief, it fell to me to track you down. Captain Malik, I've also been entrusted with a message for the Knights. Will you hear it?
No worries, Grail. Yeah, hope to see you back soon. Always a pleasure having you, as you know. Yeah, there's something like really disastrously fitting about this too. Not in a way where like Asbel gets what he deserves, but it really did feel in that final confrontation and the last conversation he ever had, as far as we know, with his father, that he was really making the decision to join the Knights as basically a complete break with his family and saying like, I will no longer have anything to do with this context or place. And so the fact that being out on a mission for the Knights actually precluded him from even like seeing the letter that would have given him the option to go home is like, in a sad way, Asbel kind of got exactly what he was looking for at the time by undercutting his own agency and capacity to undo that choice. And now, of course, the question is, well, to use your word, Chrissy, right? Aftermath. How is he going to cope with it and use it to determine his decisions and course in the world from here on out?
Lot humbly requests the assistance of His Majesty's Royal Knights in her struggle against tyranny.
Yeah, and that's a great point, Dugan. I think it's something that the Tales games are all consistently so great with, the idea that as you're growing up and figuring out how to chart your own course, sometimes you need to make pretty radical decisions where you don't know how they will shape your life, but you know that they will radically and irreversibly mold you into something different than what you are now, which is part of what growing up is, right? But can also lead to some of the traumas of growing up like we're seeing here, right? So I think they offer many interesting meditations in that vein.
The domains of Windor hold great autonomy compared to other nations. They're independent states, in all but name.
That's interesting to learn.
This makes it difficult for the Knights to intervene in disputes. I see the right of your cause, but things may be difficult.
My grandfather said much the same thing. It seems we can only pray the dispute does not escalate into all-out war.
I will speak with the other Knights, but I make no guarantees. This is a matter most grave, and perhaps they'll feel differently upon hearing the full story.
Yeah, there you go. That's a great comparison. I had never heard that. Yeah, that's really interesting.
We are in your debt, Captain.
Asbel,
Sir?
I trust you to be the Knight's eyes and ears in this matter. Return to your home and assess the situation. We need to understand what's really happening.
And try not to be too traumatized by a homecoming under these circumstances. It definitely will have no implications for the broader narrative.
You'll also want to pay respects to your father and look in on Lady Carey. She needs you now more than ever. Go to her and give her what comfort you can.
Understood.
I must return to Lant as well.
Then you and Asbel should travel together. Send word if you need any assistance, and I'll let you know if I learn anything on my side as well.
Going home. In the words of the late great Mythos Yggdrasil, home. I'm going home. Your mother's depending on you, so you should get going. We don't want her to worry. My reassignment has yet to be announced. I think Malik is really the only person who could say that to him, though, right, Chrissy? I mean, like we were talking about earlier, Asbel has clearly taken him on as a father figure, and so I read that as him saying, you know, you need to do this now because you'll regret it for the rest of your life if you don't, even if you left on bad terms with him. I think the thing we read earlier said that the password was treasure, right? Unless I had a stroke and I'm just totally fabricating that. There you go. Oh, and it's an elixir. What a get. I'm glad we saw it, speaking of the value of looking at random text on the walls. And an ice pop. Yeah, just to further that conversation of what you were saying, Duke, about like rebelling against the parent in order to find yourself. there is something I think that is, deeply resonant, and you see in a lot of literature and even just psychology along that theme, right? It's that that Oedipal idea of needing to kind of dethrone or metaphorically kill the father as the son in order to kind of get out of the family shadow and individuate and find your own identity. All well and good, and I think, we can understand in the abstract and then also in the particular circumstances which Asbel faced why you would feel compelled to do that. But then when you think about the reality of how, especially given his training as a knight, how maybe he could have made the difference between his dad's life and death and his choice and his fate and his desire to individuate himself, ended up keeping him away from Lant and even from hearing the call and giving himself the option to heed it. There's something pretty dark and damning about that kind of consequence, I think. The headmaster's bust. Yep, Kronos and Zeus. Same thing. No, I don't know, Chrissy. That's weird. Maybe try, exiting and coming back to the stream. I'm looking at the control deck for OBS now, and it looks to be fine, unlike earlier in the stream, so... Unless other people are having chat issues, and please speak up if you are, but that might be something on your side this time. Time out of mind.
I don't remember seeing this statue before.
They built it 5 years ago, so you wouldn't have been around. It's actually the first headmaster of the Knight Academy.
7
Awesome, thanks for the
years.
data, Doug.
Has it really been that long?
Yeah, so, how have you been? Sorry. I know you were pretty sick back then, and...
Cut it out, okay? Why don't we dispense with the small talk?
Wow.
We need to focus on the matters at hand.
Yeah, alright.
It's like they both want to be able to bridge that time and figure out some kind of relationship and connection, but they don't even know how to begin to talk to each other now. It's so harmonically themed in my mind and so thoughtfully voiced. You can just feel the trepidation and uncertainty, but also just defeatedness in their tone with how they're addressing each other. This should be something other than what it is, but it is what it is, and there's nothing we can do to change that. Yeah, well, and remember too on that score, Doug, speaking of last conversations, the last conversation that, conversation if you can call it that really the last fight that Asbel and Cheria had was Cheria saying very directly, I want to be there for you. I know that you lost these people in your life, but I want to be able to take that role for you. And Asbel just laying into her for presuming that there was any sense in which she could replace those people that he had lost. And so, a final interaction born from so much love, but also pain. And after you've probably spent the last 7 years, like we talked about, losing time or repressing that or sublimating it or just figuring out various psychic gymnastics to cope with it, how do you get back to it? How do you find the way back? How can you? Yeah, absolutely, Chrissy. I think that's a great point. Well, because if you think about it, Cheria said in that moment, I want to be able to take the role of your friends for you, but she was a sick kid who was isolated and, kept away from others for the sake of her health. And I think as much as she wanted to be there for Asbel, she was really looking for a lifeline and was kind of implicitly saying, I need you to be the kind of person your friends were to you, to me right now. And he basically just outright refused and rejected her. So no wonder she's so walled off from him now. How could you not be, right? Oh, okay, we're heading to the port. Got it, I think that's this way. It's a great guidance button. Love that guidance button. Oh, that's right, because we had to take the ferry in the childhood arc to get here in the first place. I had forgotten that. They hired some men to unload this cargo, and they finished up the job while I was out dealing with other issues. There was something behind those crates, but now they're all stacked up and in the way. Oh dear. Ah, but we can unstack them. Nothing like box puzzles. I'm sure this is the only time that'll come up in all of Tales of Graces. Hourglass! Oh, awesome. We're getting all kinds of great kit from boxes early on here. Pottery, don't tell me that. Oh no, it works like a normal hourglass. Oh, you had me scared that you were implying it had other weird bizarro rules, like we just had to slog through in Zestiria and Berseria. No, it's regular hourglass and regular elixir. Milob. Yeah, speaking of music, this is not a melancholic piano line, is it? Well, now we know, and we can revel in it. Yeah, Duke, that's a really interesting perspective, and so I think I'm glad we're spending this time now to think about the childhood story in a new context already, as the characters from it are starting to come back together. Because, like I alluded to at the end of last stream, I really do feel like a big part of the rest of the game is just figuring out new ways to interpret and reinterpret what we saw during the first two streams. And I think that's a really interesting point, that as much as Asbel as a kid was really plucky and determined and like he was resolving to chart his own way for his own reasons with going off to join the Knights, I think it totally makes sense to me to also read it in the way that you're talking about, where so much trauma came at him in Lant from so many sides in such a short period of time that, like, the only option for his survival was to exile himself and to basically say, I need to find a new home because everything here for me right now is chaos and pain. Which is, of course, not how he was expressing it as an 11-year-old boy himself, but I think we talked earlier in the stream about the idea of just safety and the loss of safety, especially in that scene in the catacombs. You can definitely see him deciding to go and join the Knights as kind of a way of coping with that total loss of the safety he had felt in his life, I think. This is the boarding dock for the ferry between Verona and Lant. We would like to board. Let's do it. Are you going to have one of the Tales game's patented heart-to-hearts on a ferry?
Once we reach land, I'll look into hiring a turtles transport. You must be exhausted after so much travel.
Thank you, but I'm fine, really.
But what about your illness?
It's gone. It disappeared 7 years ago, just after everything happened.
The heart
I'm
of it.
stronger than almost everyone I know.
7 years. Maybe Sophie is watching over us somehow.
Stranger things have happened in JRPGs for sure,
I'm
dude.
glad you're better, Cheria.
Thanks. Me too.
We talked in Zestiria and Berseria also about the amazing layers of depth these games can offer their players in terms of what is not said in a world where there are so many conversations in battle and out of battle and skits and cutscenes and everything in between. And notice as we're working through this period of the story from the capital back to Lant, and it's just Asbel and Cheria and the party, how there are basically no skits that we found. There's literally nothing that they could really say to each other. They don't know how to start those conversations. Ever seen the Valkanus Creus in Verona? Funny old thing, eh? I always thought those were wings attached to it. I heard there was another dust-up between Lant and Fendel. It'll be full-scale war before long. Export ships goods into Verona from all over the world. Food, lumber, textiles, you name it, we ship it. Oh? I've seen yous before. You needs to duelize anything? So presumably, we're meant to believe this is the Turtles who was here when we passed through this port during the childhood arc. Merchants have to have good memories, I suppose. Oh yeah, we don't have anything to duelize it with. No shards. We need shards. Seaweed from Lake Grail is a delicacy in Verona. People can't get enough of it over there. Got a little extra on me if you'd like to try some. Thank you so much. Boy, we're drowning in seaweed. Between the random bits we've dug up in the closets of hotel rooms and the random bits that are offered to us by perfect strangers. I like to go out and hunt for Creus. I can sell it to old people and then go buy candy. This kid has business all figured out. I found this while I was out hunting. You can have it. I don't need it. Rice. Oh, just give us some fish and we can make a sushi roll. Every fight is different. It all depends on who's involved in the battle. So I don't think Cheria is able or willing to fight with Asbel yet. Let's find out. One way to know for sure. Yep. He stands alone.
Okay, you won't live to regret this. Okay, slash! Gotcha, so, die! Fall! Slash! Victory is ours!
Know thy enemy. If you hold R1 during battle, your current target's info will be displayed, including the attributes it's weak against, otherwise known as its weak points. From there, you can press X to bring up even more detailed info. So this must be the game when they first did away with magic lenses, right? Because in the earlier games, you had to use a specific item, usually called a magic lens, in order to see all of that info. And of course, as we've seen in Berseria and Zestiria, that's gone away at that point. And I think as recently before this one, as Vesperia, magic lenses were certainly still a thing. So I think this was the turning point for that. It's the royal we pottery. Or he's talking to himself and his sword. In a very Swordian kind of sense. Yeah, which then carries forward into Zestiria and Vesperia, right? So, I mean, the logic of why they would decide to do away with that certainly tracks. Pretty big change.
Let's do this.
I remember a big part of the meta for people who tried to do everything and fill out everything 100% in the earlier games was you always had to remember not only to find every enemy, but also, especially on the unique enemies like bosses, be sure to use a magic lens, otherwise the info won't get into the enemy book, and then you won't be able to complete it in a single playthrough.
Victory is ours.
You don't have the same shape of challenge in a game like this. Differently shaped challenges, to be sure, but not that specific one.
Let's do this. Draw. Mow him down. Die. Gotcha. Slash. Gotcha. Gotcha. You won't live to regret this. Okay. Demon Bang. Strike. Hup. Hup. Yeah. Victory is ours.
Ooh, didn't get hit. I feel so fancy. Asbel's Nimble Fang was upgraded. Awesome. Effective attribute use. Different arts have different attributes. If your enemy is weak against an art of a certain attribute, be sure to include it in your combos. If you strike an enemy with such an attribute, your attacks will do extra damage and it will be temporarily unable to evade. Alright. Regulars to the stream will know that my head usually doesn't work super well with those sorts of weakness exploitation mechanics, especially on the fly, but for all I've said about especially the systems of this game, I do want to try to give it the old college try, so I'll make an effort in the next few streams to wrap my mind around that. I'm sure once you get into the habit, it's easy to stick with. For sure. Yeah, that's the plan, Potter.
Cheria, get back.
It'll just be a learning process. Not even learning so much as just habit forming. Like, I understand how to do it, it's just I'm so not in the habit of it.
You little... We will survive.
Alright, well let's try. Weak against Beast, and Strike, and Burn, and B-Arts. Now what do we have on our B-Arts? So that's... Slash, that was one of them, I think. Those are all Slash. No, Strike. I was confusing Strike with Slash. Okay, so we don't have any specific ones, but it's generically weak against B-Arts, so that should work.
Okay, slash! Gotcha! Demon Bang! Gotcha!
Nope, that seems good. Bird slash aerial petrify. Alright. I think this will be an easier system to take advantage of once we get a few more arts. But at least we can build the habit now, which, as I was saying, is the greater half of the battle for Aaron.
Demon Bang! Slash!
Oh, but this one is not... No, this one is also just weak to B-Arts.
Okay, Demon Bang! Mow him down!
It is nice to stun when you draw your sword. That's very satisfying.
Mow him down! Gotcha! Demon Bang! Gotcha! Fall! Demon Bang! Let's keep moving.
Oh, another no-hitter. I wasn't even trying. Oh, and we got a shard. Living the dream. And Asbel's weapon has been tempered. Oh, man. Tempering gear. If you use equipment that has been dualized with shards, it will eventually become tempered. If it's a weapon, its attack power will be increased, but if it's armor, its defense power will rise. The amount of the boost depends on the quality of the gear. Such equipment is displayed in yellow. I love it. Yeah, totally makes sense, Pottery. And with the more, I guess you could say, traditional art assignment schematic for Graces versus Berseria, like we were talking about back when I was struggling with it in Berseria, I think that will be much more feasible for me. So, equally good advice, but hopefully more actionable advice for Aaron in this playthrough versus the last.
What was that?
What? That light from my hand? I don't know. It just started happening recently.
I call it my Jesus power because of no reason.
You're hurt.
Oh, this? It's nothing. I'm fine.
Stigmata? That was a joke. I'm not actually adding more religious allusions to this stream. We can keep that on hold after the waters of absolution from the last stream. See, that's the real metagame of With a Terrible Fate stream. When are we doing serious interpretive work and when are we joking? And how many people can discern the difference?
What the? Cheria?
Yeah, interesting, Duke. So it sounds like you're really doubling down on a lot of the characters having some pretty directly physiological effects from the aftermath of what happened in the catacombs. It seems plausible based on how nutty and singular an occurrence that was.
You can do it too?
Yeah, it just started happening recently. The doctor thinks that incident 7 years ago might have unlocked unknown power.
The game seems to agree with you, Duke Regas.
An unknown power.
You mean like in-world religion, I imagine, Chrissy, right? Rather than religious illusions? Yeah, very different feeling than a game like Symphonia, which starts you out on a journey of regeneration, definitely. Although remember, we were going through the Royal Sanctuary to get to the catacombs, so it's not as if it's not there, just certainly different in its structure. Yeah, fair enough. Once you've seen one kind of explosion like that, you've seen them all, right?
There, all better.
To Ein Sof Hour, speaking of mystic illusions. I mean, only if the monster could use eternal recurrence against her, right?
Thanks.
Ein Sof, oh no!
Kind of funny to see little Cheria all grown up.
Oh no, it was right there. Oh, fuck. Oh, okay. In this 80-page essay, I will explain why Sophie is the divine impetus to creation in the Jewish mystic tradition of Kabbalah, and all of Tales of Graces is the emanation of her intention from her singular point out into the infinite. Oh, help me. Pottery is breaking my brain with jokes.
Remember that time I hurt my hand and you tried to bandage it up with a big old sock? Good times.
Shut the fuck up, Asbel. There are no good times
It's
anymore.
been a long time, Asbel. People change.
Yeah, that's what I said.
Also, I can fight for myself now. You don't have to save me from monsters anymore. Let's go.
Man, it's interesting too. I mean, I know this is just like free association, but since we brought up Dawn of the New World and knowing that Cheria is voiced by the same voice actress who voices Marta, like to have the total polar opposition of their characters in terms of Marta always like aggressively looking to be saved by Emil, her Ratatosk knight in shining armor, versus Cheria now being so cold to Asbel and saying, "You don't need to look after me. I basically don't want to have anything to do with you." Like, total dichotomy of the two characters.
Hey, remember that guy at the Night Academy? Well, he gave me permission to graduate.
How wonderful for you.
Thanks.
I can tell she really cares.
Wouldn't a king's knight have to stay in the capital?
No, because I'm still technically a student. And besides, the captain wants my report on the situation in Lont.
I see. So you'll return to the capital when the matter is settled?
Yeah, but I'll be in Lont for a while yet. I'm worried about my mother.
Then I guess we should get moving.
Cheria.
I'm pretty sure that Presea had more emotion in her voice when the Crucius crystal growing inside her was literally suppressing her capacity to be a human than Cheria had when she just said, "How wonderful for you." Oh yeah, definitely. I think taking it hard is understatement of the, well, the year or the 7 years, depending on how you want to look at it. They've been saying the same thing for 7 years. Yeah, it's definitely an obvious setup, Pottery. I like it though because it's like, I mean, it's an obvious setup, but also I think it's a really like nice study of the particular setup of these characters that they've put together in Graces, because you have two things. Well, you have three things really, right? You have the time skip, so they've all matured by 7 years, and so they're going to be different from the get-go. They've also all gone their separate directions, and so their growth trajectories have kind of been able to deviate from whatever, you know, the norm or the average line would have been had they stuck together and continued to grow as a group. And then third, they're also all coping with this formative trauma that they experience together in different ways because they're on their own and they have different contexts, right? So I think it's obvious that the characters are going to be different after that big of a time skip, but I think like that particular trio of factors makes it really enticing and interesting and logical that they would be like radically and uncomfortably different from one another, but different exactly because of what it was that they shared in their childhood. So kind of that uncanny valley of being so different yet still having this shared history and being so similar in a lot of ways.
Okay, let's do this. Ready? That should buy us some time at least, right?
Yeah, so now she's joined battle, but far from her joining because of a willingness to team up with Asbel. It's from that sentiment she expressed of saying, I don't need you to protect me, I can take care of myself. So it's almost more of like they're fighting independently and just happen to be side by side with one another rather than really working as a team. And in that spirit, telling that, you know, the after-battle dialogue is just Cheria saying something into the void rather than actually having a conversation with Asbel.
Okay, let's do this. Ready?
Mow him down! Gotcha!
Ready?
Okay, gotcha!
Judgment. Ready?
I'll keep on getting stronger.
Whether you like it or not, Cheria. Yeah, that's a great point too, Dugregus. It's like, even if she wants to rekindle or have a relationship with Asbel, like the last time she was open and honest with him, she was completely just devastated and broken by his response. So who among us could really decide to be that vulnerable again with a person who did that to us? So much easier to just shut yourself off and be cold out of a form of self-preservation. A way of coping with Asbel and also a mechanism for for coping with trauma, perhaps some of the trauma, just everything that happened back then more broadly.
Slash! Demon Fang! Mow him down! Die!
That should buy us some time at least, right?
Yeah, I don't know if this is quite what you were saying with that last message, Duke Regis, but something that I have spoken about before, like in the lecture that I gave on Tales versus Final Fantasy at PAX, is I've thought a decent amount about how these games think, or in many cases don't think, about the notion of destiny. Like this came up in our Tales of Vesperia stream too, and some of the post-game stuff. And I think, to me, one of the things that is really vividly characteristic of the series, especially in contrast with series like Final Fantasy that very directly deal with like very metaphysically robust ideas of fate and gods that need to be overcome, is that these Tales games seem to me much more concerned with sort of just the chaos and concatenation of human choices and things that just happen in the world and we have to figure out how to cope with in one way or another. Like, people sometimes talk about destiny, but in most cases, as I read it, it ends up much more being like a heuristic for making sense of what people did in the world prior to them and what changes they want to bring about next, rather than anything to do with, you know, hard predeterminism or actually not being able to chart the future of the world or anything like that. So I think if this is where you're going with that, I think you're totally right that a lot of this game and the series more broadly is like a really thoughtful character study in terms of how characters make sense of their place in a world that oftentimes feels difficult or threatening to understand, and how they move from that position of insecurity to radical freedom and the ability to make things better, not just for themselves, but for the entire community around them. Well, things don't look great.
Cheria, come quickly. Frederick has been captured by the Fendalian army.
Grandpa, no!
Those curs have launched a full-scale invasion of Law.
The voice dialogue cut off again, like it did at the end of last stream. And listen to this, because I was going back and listening to the VOD when that happened with Malik, and the weirder thing that makes me concerned, it's something to do with the disc or the way it was coded rather than the PS3, is that it's not like the overall audio is cut out. So I also don't think it's anything to do with my setup. Like, you can hear the background music and the voices, but just certain lines of the dialogue are falling out of the game. But hopefully it doesn't persist. It didn't persist for a long time last time either. I do have another version of this disc, which was a little more scratched. That's why I got a new one, but we can always try that and see if it's just an artifact of the disc. I guess I'll read the lines until the voices come back. When we are finished, I am prepared to accept full punishment for this failure.
But first,
there we go.
We must attempt to rescue Frederick.
What the fuck?
Right. Where did you last see him?
Near the main skirmish between the border fortress and Launt Hill.
All right, I'll leave at once.
I'm coming too. You too, Lord Asbel? We can't let those Fendalian brutes take Frederick. Come on, Cheria!
Welcome to Launt, the northernmost city in the kingdom and the closest to the northern nation of Fendal. Wait, is that you, Master Asbel? I was going to say, it'd be funny if he wasn't recognized at all. Oh, and some people don't quite recognize him, but just see the resemblance. I guess it has been 7 years, hasn't it? That hair, you just look just like Master Asbel. What if I told you? Master Asbel, you've come back to us. So we have those. That's a better blouse for Cheria. Alright, I'll grab that. Yes. Yeah, that's one of the things I wanted to think more about and maybe play Tears of the Kingdom more or replay it at some point for Chrissy, because I feel like part of it is maybe to do with the idea that people never really knew him directly and just kind of knew of his actions, or maybe he just changes his look so much, or he's already been mythologized. Like, that happened so frequently that I felt like they were trying to build it into the world in a way that was thoughtful, and I didn't quite know where they wanted to go with it. But I noticed that too, for sure. So there's no time to be taking detours. What I was trying to take was just to find a save point. I don't remember where the one in the Lant is. Well, we can try going back to the manor. If it'll let us go back there at this point, maybe it won't. A Noko plushie. Oh, we got another plushie. Good for when you're feeling lonely. Yeah, I know what you mean. And like I said, I don't have settled views on it. I feel like it was enough of a deliberate and consistent choice in how people were reacting to him that it just doesn't make sense to me and isn't satisfying enough that it's just not to alienate new players. I get what you mean, but I feel like there's got to be more to it. Maybe for a playthrough like mine of Breath of the Wild, maybe part of the joke is that, yeah, you can get a house there, but maybe some players like myself didn't spend too much time in Hatino anyway. But interesting to think about, to be sure. Looking at this now, it doesn't seem all that big. Yeah, I thought it was totally immovable as a kid. Oh, I'm not promising insights. It's the kind of thing that I kind of notice and lean into as wanting there to be a reason. But I sat down and made a whole argument that Link was an automaton in Breath of the Wild, so I'm sure if you give me a room and some time, I'll think of something. All right, friendos. Well, I'm glad I checked the time because I had a sense that we had like 30 or 45 minutes left. But before we go into a whole rescue mission for Cheria's grandpa, I think this will be as good a point as any for us to wrap things up for the evening. Yeah, collective trauma, exactly. Man, talk about starting off the adult arc with a bang. We learned a whole new arm of the combat system. We've learned a lot about the various gameplay mechanics, which we're very excited about. That was a great element of the stream, and also got to know a bit more about how Asbel has come to terms, or maybe hasn't quite come to terms, with the trauma of his childhood. And now Cheria's in the mix, and clearly she has been through many of the same challenges in terms of figuring out how to deal with that same event, but has taken a very different path. And now here they are getting forced back together in a fresh new trauma of Asbel having missed the death of his father and the capacity to intervene with respect to it. So it's dark. There are some surprisingly upbeat moments and music tracks like we talked about, but most of it sounds more like the music we're hearing here right now, with the bass piano and general pain and foreboding. So I imagine it's going to be a dark but interesting journey ahead. Thank you for tuning in on a Monday evening. It was a pleasure too to celebrate, moving on to the next level of this streamed adventure and just the recognition of what it is that we're doing with these live book clubs. It's a pleasure, truly, from the bottom of my heart. Thank you. It wouldn't be the same without each and every one of you, the real life JRPG party. So excited to see how Tales of Graces continues to unfold. Excited to plan for Beyond the Dawn this coming week. So keep your eyes peeled for With the Terrible Fate Social in terms of what the scheduling plan will look like around that. If you have any constraints and really want to be involved, don't be afraid to reach out also, because I want to make it as easy to access and engage with for as many of our audience members, especially the regulars, as possible. And stay tuned for more written work aside, and a Halloween podcast tomorrow, courtesy of yours truly and Dan Hughes. So a lot of good content ahead. Been moving and shaking in some talks with some new and returning analysts as well. So it's my ardent hope that soon you'll be hearing some old and new and just other voices on the publication as well. We used to have a robust plurality of them back in the day, and now it's been a little more constrained, but the ethos and the approach is still alive and well in many gamers and thinkers, and excited to make that the case in some of our more recent publications as well. So plenty to look forward to as we head into the last stages of this year, and we'll roll right into the next one. God knows we have plenty of Tales games ahead. So plenty to keep us occupied with as we wrestle with these ideas. It is next week. Yeah, welcome to it. And if you can believe it, Pottery, in 2 days, it's next month. I still feel like there's some part of my consciousness that has not moved beyond January of 2023. Or if I'm honest, probably March and April of 2020 with the pandemic and everything that happened then. So time is just a construct, and we're working through it. Oh, did I say this week? Well, there you go. That's a sign that Aaron just needs to to get to bed himself. But yes, to clarify, since I misspoke, Beyond the Dawn will be next week, not this week. Excuse me, mea culpa. But this week, I think what I was trying to refer to was this week, we'll definitely be announcing what our game plan is for the schedule of the streams, which will then commence next week. So if you want to voice your input on that, feel free to let me know. Try to work around that and build around it as much as possible. But we're definitely going to front load it with some timely playthroughs to celebrate its release, which should be a lot of fun for sure. Yeah, Pottery, fair enough. And if you can't make it, I and the lamppost all know that you're good for watching the VODs. So I'll be excited to chat about it with you either way, whether you're able to show up or not. But if it ends up being a convenient way for you to break up your moving, you know I'm here for that and happy to provide that for you as well. Yeah, no worries. Well, do what you have to do. God knows moving is no fun and something that you have to push through. So just rise to the grind as you would with a JRPG, right? All right, my dear friends. Well, this has been a pleasure. A wonderful way to start off this week, which will not have any interruptions for special Beyond the Dawn things other than the schedule. So we'll be back again, same time on Wednesday, 7 p.m. Eastern, to be working through more of this masterpiece, Tales of Graces F. Until then, I hope you think well. I hope you play well. Pick up something spooky for Halloween if you can. It's the best day of the year to play something spooky and think about horror storytelling in video games. And I'll see you back here in a couple of days. Cheers, my friends. Always a pleasure.